What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I wanted to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall market. And break down what's going on with the charts right now as we're seeing some new patterns developing and some fears building about the whole oil market right now. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention an 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends today in just about 13 hours from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So I just wanted to say that right now, SPY is still at this very, very critical support at 570. We are hovering below our 20 EMA, which isn't necessarily the best of signs. And there's a risk of more downside if we continue to hold below that support. So I'll be watching to see what ends up happening with these new developments. I just want to say that, however, we do have some data coming in that's very important to go over first before I break down more details. So just know at 8:50 a.m. we've been having Bowman giving a speech. This is somewhat significant because Bowman could say very important things. The market has been dipping a bit as a result of that because there's being a little bit more cautious right now. The market thinks there's a 41.6% chance we get a 50 basis point cut, and about a 58.4% chance we see 25 basis points. But besides that, there's also going to be more volatility coming. We have the Chicago PMI at 9:45 a.m., 15 minutes after market open, look for some volatility. And then at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index. This is going to be a bigger one. This should cause volatility about an hour after market open. So once the market opens, 1 hour is going to pass, and then we have this manufacturing data. That's going to cause an even bigger move, if anything. At 11:30 a.m., we have the 3 and 6 month bill auctions, followed by Jerome Powell's speech at 1:55 p.m. Jerome Powell's speech will be the biggest factor of the day. However, whatever he says will shake things, so I can't wait for that. However, for now, we're just going to focus on the first piece of data one step at a time. So the Chicago PMI and then the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index should cause more volatility. I think the main time is going to be 10:30 a.m. So we'll see what Jerome Powell says, if this affects interest rates and what the market prices in. That's also going to be key for the way we end up moving. Now, there's some talks out there about how oil prices are not really reacting as sharply, especially after tensions in the Middle East. And many analysts are arguing that the oil market is not pricing in an all-out war. But that's not a guarantee. There's no guarantee that oil has to rise sharply or anything like that. It's just continuing to hold up. So we'll see how it ends up going. But there are some fears building amongst this. So I would say to be a little bit cautious with this coming out. Besides that, Tesla did get a little downgrade. RBC Capital saying that for the near-term setup, there might be a little bit of a downgrade, at least for Tesla. Oops, sorry about that, guys. There might be a little downgrade, at least for Tesla as time goes on. Besides that, I didn't see anything else that was too significant on the news. Everything else is quite minor. So with that being said, let's now focus on what I see for the charts. So for Tesla, we basically have this resistance at 570.6. Not Tesla, for SPY, we have 570.6 as resistance. If we break this, we're going to be looking for 571.5. We might try to push a little bit in the morning, then we may start dipping a little bit lower because we have a bearish wedge-like setup and we are showing some weakness in the 4-hour time frame. So look for a pop to about 571 and then maybe a dip after that. I think we could continue our way back down towards 570. If that does not hold us, we're at risk of coming down to 568 and 566, very close to the 50 EMA. So a pop and drop is very probable. We could be looking for us to push a little bit closer to 571 for a little bit of a dip all the way down to 568. For ES, we're in a bit of a downwards spiral right here. We're kind of rejecting again and again and again. The resistance at basically 57.91. We have this support to watch. We're very close to about 57.61. So I think that there's a risk of us kind of consolidating a bit, but we could start to dip a little bit lower on ES as time goes on to the 50 EMA, which could drag SPY a little bit lower. So please be very mindful of that. If we reclaim 57.91, though, I think we could bounce, which I don't think is the most probable case. We could try to rebound to about 57.80 in the daytime, and then we could start to dip all the way down to 57.61 very soon for a small dip. That looks more favorable to me. For Tesla, we have a double top leg structure. We're looking at 258 as our support. If Tesla does not hold that, I think we dump all the way down to about 254. With the downgrade that came for Tesla, that's why it's a little bit weak now. This was looking really strong on Friday, looking like it wanted to pump more, but things have shifted with some negative news. So if Tesla reclaims 260, we could remain bullish and look for 262 and 265. If we can't hold above 260, we're at risk of dipping back down to about 258, followed by 254. I'll be watching to see if this double top ends up panning out as we have this support down here, and we'll see how things end up going. For Nvidia, we are basically kind of rejecting off a head and shoulders like structure. We have 118.7 as our resistance. We have support around 116. That's where this imbalance happens to be. So 116 could be tipping, taking us a little bit lower towards this imbalance. So this is forming like a dome right here. So this could, drop us a little bit lower. So I think there's a risk of Nvidia dipping to 116 if 118 does not hold. So watch for that. For Bitcoin, we're dipping right now. We are on a bit of a downwards move. We have resistance at 64,384. We have the support all the way down here towards the lower 63,000 area. We could push to the 50 EMA, then reject and start dipping lower. So be very mindful of Bitcoin and be very, very careful. For NQ, we have kind of like a head and shoulders. We're dipping right over here. We need to try to break past 20,228 to turn back to bullish. We may attempt to get closer to that, only to start dipping later on. But I still think there's a risk of us getting close to the lower 20,000 area. So look for a rebound in the morning, then a small dip that could be coming as time goes on, especially after we have our data. It's about 20,000, and we'll see how we end up reacting there. For the QQQ, we're trying to rebound. We'll see if we could try to hold 485.8 or not. If we hold above this, we could be looking for 488 again. If not, we're likely dipping down to about 481. So my gut tells me we're going to consolidate up here for some time, and maybe slowly we will make our way down to the lower 480s. So we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. For Aapl, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders. We have this resistance to watch for around this 230 area. So I think we could attempt to go higher. We'll see if we reject or not. So watch and see how this ends up going. But make sure you watch this carefully. We'll see how we end up reacting to about 231. I think that we could be pushing for 231 to 232 before we see some downside. So watch for a little bit of a pop on Aapl and maybe a dip as time goes on. The IWM is just barely holding the 50 EMA at 218.81. If we lose that, we're looking for a dip all the way down closer to the 217s. If we hold 218.81, we're looking for 220s or resistance. Breakdown, and we could try to bounce. Otherwise, we're just range bound. So I think we're going to be range bound, rebound a bit, then start consolidating. Then we could be dipping lower to fill this gap. So give this the time it needs. For Coinbase, we're kind of in the middle right here. If we break past 187, we're looking for that gap fill for the 190s. If we can't hold above 182, we're likely dipping all the way down to about 178. There's a very, very good chance of that. Amazon's on a bit of a downwards move right here as well. We have resistance around 188. If we can't hold above that, we're at risk of dipping all the way down towards 184. So I do think it's going to try to retest 188, but we'll see if we get a rejection, and that could lead us to dipping towards 184. For Meta, we're kind of consolidating right here. We're in the middle. So look for a little bit of an attempt to get to 570 or so. And if we get a rejection, we have to lose 565. If we lose that, then yes, we could be dipping down to like the 560 area. So look for a pop and some consolidation before we start dipping all over again. For Microsoft, we're on a bit of a downwards move. We have 429 as our resistance, then 424.5 as our support. We could be dipping back down to where this imbalance happens to be. So I do see risk of us dipping lower. We could pop a bit and start dipping as time goes on. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. For Google, we're just consolidating. So we're trying to hold 165, which is a good sign. If we could hold above 165, I think that we could attempt to get closer to 167. And if we can't do that, we're at risk of dipping down to 163, the 163 area. So we'll see how things end up going. If we could hold 165 or not, watch for that. I'm talking about the 4-hour time frame, so we have to give it some time. So that being said, guys, I think that when we open, the market's going to rebound just a bit, and then there is going to be a risk of downside later on. Though we could easily start dipping lower towards some of these lower targets, especially if SPY does not hold 570. That's just going to be a temporary move. However, we may start off with a little pump and maybe a drop depending on the Chicago PMI manufacturing numbers at 10:30 a.m. But then never forget we have Jerome Powell's speech. That's going to be very significant. So I can't wait to see what he ends up saying. So that being said, guys, I want to just say I appreciate you guys so much for listening. So please have a great day. I will see you guys very soon in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, take care and peace out.